The movie opens on a stormy night, with a young woman named So-young leaving her baby son, Woo-sung, in front of a church during a heavy downpour. As the rain pours down, two policewomen are on a stakeout, trying to bust a child trafficking syndicate that is suspected to be operating within the church. The lead investigator, Soo-jin, spots the abandoned baby and quickly takes action, placing the infant in a special box provided by the church. As Song-hyeon and Dong-soo enter the church, they find Woo-sung, along with a letter from his mother apologizing for leaving him there and promising to return. But Song-hyeon wants to cover up the incident and orders Dong-soo to delete the CCTV footage to make it appear as if no baby was left at the church. Meanwhile, Soo-jin tails Song-hyeon back to his home, while her colleague, Detective Lee, follows So-young. As the investigation unfolds, it becomes clear that Song-hyeon is not only involved in child trafficking but also runs a tailor and laundry business. Meanwhile, So-young seems upset and dejected after leaving her baby behind, and Detective Lee follows her into a local market but loses track of her. One morning, while Song-hyeon is hanging out laundry to dry, he receives a call from Dong-soo informing him that So-young has shown up looking for her son, Woo-sung, whom she had left in front of the church. Sensing trouble, Song-hyeon instructs Dong-soo to bring So-young to his house, hoping to keep her from reporting the incident to the police. Dong-soo takes So-young to the baby room in the church, but instead of helping her find her son, he accuses her of neglect and blames her for leaving the baby without any contact information or personal details. So-young has no proof that she left her baby at the church, and Dong-soo tries to cover up his role in the kidnapping by shifting the blame to her. Overwhelmed with sadness and regret, So-young leaves the church empty-handed, still searching for her lost child. Dong-soo manages to catch up with So-young and takes her to Song-hyeon's house. The situation quickly turns into an argument as So-young accuses Song-hyeon and Dong-soo of kidnapping her baby without permission. The two men try to explain their actions, but So-young is adamant that they return her child to her. Finally, Song-hyeon comes clean and reveals that they plan to find suitable adoptive parents for Woo-sung. He sweetens the deal by offering So-young a portion of the sales money if she agrees to cooperate with their plan. Initially hesitant, So-young eventually agrees when she hears the amount she stands to gain from the deal. With the agreement in place, she asks when they plan to leave. One sunny afternoon, Song-hyeon, Dong-soo, and So-young set out to meet a prospective buyer, Woo-sung. However, they soon noticed that they were being followed by Soo-jin and Lee. In an attempt to break the ice, Song-hyeon struck up a conversation with So-young in the back seat of the car. So-young found his efforts amusing, and she soon joined in the conversation. After a while, the group arrived at a pier to meet the couple who was interested in buying Woo-sung. However, when the couple saw the baby that Song-hyeon offered, they were disappointed because the baby did not match the photo provided by him. They began to haggle over the price of the baby while also questioning Woo-sung's father's identity. Song-hyeon was unable to explain the situation to the couple, and they started to suspect that Woo-sung might be a rape baby. So-young overheard the conversation and became furious. Not only did the couple's question remind her of Woo-sung's father, but she was also outraged that they had made a negative comment about her baby. An argument broke out, and the couple ultimately decided not to buy Woo-sung. As they drove away from the pier, Song-hyeon and the others discussed the heated argument that had just taken place. However, So-young, still fuming with anger, demanded that Song-hyeon and Dong-soo find her a better buyer. Meanwhile, a police team was carrying out an investigation at a hotel. They suspected that the murderer of a man named Song was a woman because they had discovered traces of lipstick residue in a glass found in the hotel room. As Song-hyeon and his friends continued on their journey, they remained unaware that Soo-jin and Lee were still following them, waiting for the right opportunity to ambush them and steal the baby. Soo-jin seemed particularly driven to complete their mission, her ambition driving her forward. After a while, Song-hyeon and Dong-soo decided to visit the orphanage where Dong-soo had grown up. The children at the orphanage were delighted to see Dong-soo, who was well known and well liked among the residents. The head of the orphanage was also friendly and welcoming to the visitors. Meanwhile, Song-hyeon and So-young pretended to be a married couple, avoid drawing any unwanted attention. As they explored the orphanage, Dong-soo also took the opportunity to chat with the head's wife, reminiscing about his past as a young boy who had been abandoned by his mother. Dong-soo shared how his mother had left him a letter, promising to come back for him, but she never did. Meanwhile, Song-hyeon and So-young were in the nursery when one of the boys, Hee-jin, approached them and touched Woo-sung without permission. Song-hyeon quickly intervened, but then Hee-jin surprised them by asking Song-hyeon to adopt him. Song-hyeon and So-young refused, explaining that they only wanted one child. Later that night, they sat down for a meal with the head of the orphanage. They talked about the challenges of child adoption, including the difficulties in finding foster parents for children over the age of 6. They also discussed how not all children are willing to be adopted, which can contribute to the mistreatment of adopted children. Meanwhile, outside the orphanage, Soo-jin and Lee were busy plotting their next move. They planned to install a recording device and GPS in Song-hyeon's car, but were caught off guard by the arrival of So-young. She had gone to the car to change Woo-sung's clothes and soothe him as he was crying. Thankfully, So-young didn't spot the two of them hiding nearby. In a cramped orphanage room, tensions flare as So-young and Dong-soo engage in yet another argument. The heated exchange revolves around So-young's decision to abandon Woo-sung, a move that Dong-soo calls out as heartless. But the accusations don't stop there, as So-young counters by accusing Dong-soo of engaging in child trafficking. Both parties fiercely defend their actions, with Dong-soo claiming that he turns to such criminal activities because he believes that only a tiny fraction of the mothers who leave their children behind will actually come back for them. So-young, enraged by Dong-soo's words, tells him to stay at the orphanage before he storms out of the room. However, things take an unexpected turn when Song Hye-on interjects with a revelation about Dong-soo's past. The shocking truth leaves So-young speechless. The next morning, the tension between Dong-soo and So-young had dissipated and the two had reconciled. So-young felt remorseful and apologized for her harsh words, revealing that she prayed for forgiveness every time it rained, even though she knew it was impossible to erase her past mistakes. Meanwhile, the police team launched an investigation to track down the woman who had murdered Sung at the hotel. Their search led them to a pimp who was suspected to have housed the culprit. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a shocking truth: the perpetrator had a child with Sung. As the murder case heats up, Soo-jin finds herself in contact with the police. But she's not just a witness, but she's on a mission to take down a child trafficking ring. To do so, she hatches a risky plan to pose as a baby buyer and offer a whopping 40 million won for one of the trafficker's victims, Woo-sung. Soo-jin reaches out to the head of the trafficking operation, Song Hye-on, and his accomplice So-young, who are initially intrigued by the offer. However, Soo-jin's friend Lee warns her that such tactics are strictly prohibited by the police and that any evidence they obtain might not even be admissible in court. But Soo-jin is determined to see her mission through, even if it means taking big risks to do so. As Song Hye-on and his team made their way out of the orphanage, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't until they had traveled a considerable distance that they discovered Hye-jin, who had stowed away in their car. Despite their protests, Hye-jin insisted on joining them, citing his fear of being left behind and his knowledge of Woo-sung's imminent sale. Reluctantly, Song Hye-on allowed him to come along, knowing that he would have to keep a close eye on the young boy. Meanwhile, Soo-jin and Lee were busy putting their plan into action. They had hired a couple to pose as buyers for Woo-sung, and the two were diligently rehearsing their lines and practicing their roles. Everything had to be perfect if they were going to succeed in their mission to take down the child trafficking ring. As the critical moment approached, Soo-jin and Lee set up a secret recording location to capture the transaction between Song Hye-on's child trafficking ring and the hired couple posing as buyers for Woo-sung. But as soon as Dong-soo met the couple, he became suspicious of their story and the transaction fell apart. Dong-soo and Song Hye-on were seasoned enough to know who the real adoptive parents were versus those who might resell the baby later. Feeling disappointed by the failed transaction, the group headed to a car wash to clean their vehicle. Hye-jin, who loved bubbles, couldn't resist opening the windshield to soak them all with water and soap suds, causing laughter all around. As So-young made her way to the convenience store, her phone rang, and a woman named Kim Se-byok demanded that she hand over Woo-sung immediately. Knowing the danger of the situation, So-young quickly ended the call and tried to stay low. But as she left the store, she was met by Soo-jin and Lee, who urgently wanted to speak with her about something crucial. Later on, when So-young returned to the hotel where the group was staying, she found an eavesdropping device planted in her belongings. The device allowed Soo-jin and Lee to listen in on all of Song Hye-on's conversations and plans, giving them a crucial advantage in their mission to bring down the child trafficking ring. The tension in the hospital room was palpable as Woo-sung lay there, his tiny body racked with fever and vomiting. After a few agonizing moments, the doctor delivered the good news that Woo-sung was going to be all right. As Woo-sung rested, Lee and Soo-jin also sat in the hospital room, their faces filled with concern. In a moment of vulnerability, Lee asked Soo-jin why she was so cold to So-young. Soo-jin's response was sharp: she couldn't stand So-young's careless decision to abandon her child. At the hospital, Dong-soo posed as Woo-sung's father and impressed the nurse by explaining that he had not yet obtained a resident number for his 1-month-old son. So-young was grateful to Song Hye-on for his assistance, but trouble was brewing elsewhere. Se-byok, the widow of Sung, who was killed by So-young, had ordered her henchmen to kidnap Woo-sung so she could raise him as her own. Meanwhile, the police were on the hunt for So-young, who they believed was responsible for Sung's murder. Soo-jin and Lee had wiretapped So-young and gathered evidence against her. One of Se-byok's men contacted Song Hye-on, offering a substantial sum of money to return Woo-sung to his father. As night descended, So-young met with Lee and Soo-jin on a rooftop to talk. So-young opened up about her affair with a married man and how it led to her having a child. Lee questioned So-young about Song's murder, but So-young only gave a vague answer about being angry with him. So-young eventually grew frustrated with the interrogation and left. Later, in the hotel room, So-young, Song-hyeon, and Dong-soo expressed sadness for Hae-jin, who didn't know what her parents looked like. So-young shocked the others by admitting that she was a murderer and warned that Se-byug, Woo-sung's biological mother, was after her. She suggested that Song-hyeon and Dong-soo could sell Woo-sung without her. The next morning, Song-hyeon and Dong-soo had a change of heart and decided to find a different buyer for Woo-sung. When Taeho arrived to collect the child, Dong-soo knocked him out cold.
죽은 거 아니야?
They hurried to the train station to meet another potential buyer, and during the journey, they grew closer and bonded like a family. When they met the new couple, they thought they would make great parents. However, So-young felt a sense of sadness knowing that Woo-sung would breastfeed from another woman, while she, his biological mother, had never been able to. It was also tough for So-young to accept that the couple didn't want her to see Woo-sung in the future. With these difficult conditions, So-young and the others asked for more time before deciding whether to sell Woo-sung to the couple. After spending the day at the amusement park, Dong-soo and So-young rode the rides together. In a moment of vulnerability, Dong-soo confessed his love for her and invited her to live with him so she wouldn't have to sell her son, Woo-sung. So-young felt the same way but was hesitant to accept his offer because she was going to jail soon and didn't want her son to have a murderer as a mother. Dong-soo finally understood her predicament and realized that his mother also had her reasons for leaving him in the past. Meanwhile, Soo-jin came to a realization that it was actually her who wanted Woo-sung to be sold, not to help him, but to prove her allegations to the police. She saw the difficulty in So-young's situation and understood why Song-hyeon and Dong-soo were involved in child trafficking. As the events unfolded, Song-hyeon's strained relationship with his daughter became apparent as he visited her at a cafe. Despite his attempts to connect with her by giving her gifts, she rejected him. Later that night, while sharing a meal, Song-hyeon made a heart-wrenching request for So-young to spend time with Woo-sung because she wouldn't have the chance to do so again. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. In the end, they all spent precious moments together and the emotions in the room were palpable. Following their emotional evening together, So-young sought counsel from Soo-jin, who urged her to turn herself in and avoid selling Woo-sung. Soo-jin assured her that if the legal process was followed properly, So-young would be paroled in 3 years and could then take care of her son. However, So-young's desire for her son to have a better life led her to make a difficult decision. Meanwhile, Song-hyeon and Dong-soo feared that So-young would betray them and cooperate with the police. They hastily arranged to meet with a couple who was interested in buying Woo-sung, as they realized that time was running out. As fate would have it, Song-hyeon and Dong-soo encountered Taeho while en route to meet the couple interested in buying Woo-sung. Despite Song-hyeon's attempts to intervene, Dong-soo continued on to the meeting place. However, he was met with an unexpected turn of events when Soo-jin and Lee arrived to arrest him, while So-young had already turned herself in. Fast forward 3 years later, and Woo-sung was being lovingly cared for by Soo-jin and her husband. He was surrounded by the love, care, and protection that So-young had longed for him to have. At the moment, Soo-jin is unaware of Song-hyeon's existence, but she's quite familiar with Hae-jin and Dong-soo. In fact, Soo-jin has taken it upon herself to play matchmaker for So-young and Woo-sung, and she's gone as far as arranging a rendezvous for them. As the credits roll, we see So-young, who's recently been released from prison and landed a steady job, staring at a photo of herself with Dong-soo and some other acquaintances in the employee locker room. Suddenly, she dashes off, presumably to meet someone. Next, the scene cuts to a car where pictures of So-young, Dong-soo, Song-hyeon, and Hae-jin are hung up, showcasing the bond between them. The movie conveys a powerful message that the essence of a family lies in genuine love and affection.